This conference will now be recorded.
So last class what I have discussed here. So we're discussing about creation of these services. So this whether it is a resource group, virtual network, sub network, or virtual machine D, virtual machine. So if you observe this virtual machine point of view, it can be anything, whether it is a Linux or a Windows machine. Just we have created these services within the Azure cloud account. I mean portal.azure.com. So and then if you want to delete resource group, right? What we have done basically. So instead of deleting each and every service, whether it is a virtual network and a subnet or even this respective virtual machine, individual services if you are deleting, so it is taking some time to delete as well. Okay, instead of deleting the each and every individual service, just try to delete the resource group. So whenever if you're trying to delete this resource group, so whatever the services which is associated with this respective resource group, it will be deleted automatically. Okay, so these things yesterday we discussed practically. So these are the things basically. This is the important point. If you try to delete the respective resource group, right, automatically this virtual network and even this subnetwork and this respective virtual version is going to be deleted automatically. And then we discussed about resource group. It is a logical grouping of all the services, and then virtual machine, just it is an imaginary machine. So how you're having some laptops or desktop, just it is an imaginary. That's it. And then we discussed about IPv4 and IPv6 basically. So now here, if you go with this IPv4 and IPv6, IPv4 is a 32-bit and it was developed by Department of Defense America, and we have mentioned some ranges 0 to 255. So if you go for any thing which is related to maybe some IPv4, so compulsory that IPv4 address it should be fall between 0 to 255. This is the example here, right? And then we discussed about some IPv6, which is a 128 bits, right? So basically, if you observe the major difference between this IPv4 and IPv6, so using IPv6, we can connect more devices and also speed is consistent throughout these devices, whatever the devices we connected to respect to Wi-Fi or maybe some modem, something like that. Okay. And also one more difference is IPv6 is more secure than IPv4. Okay. And we have some example for IPv6. This is the respective example. And then we discussed about some IP addresses classes. So again, this IPv4 or maybe some IPv6 IP address specific to IP address, it is divided into it is having some different types of categories or different types of class. So these are the things, nothing but class A, class B, class C, and class D. And recently we're having some class E as well. Okay. Now, as I mentioned you, this IPv4 0 to 255. So within this 0 to 255, again they have categorized into different IP address classes. So like class A, class B, class C, and class D, and each and every of these respective categories, right? So again, they have mentioned some range. So if you go with some class A, so it is some 1 to 127, and maybe some class C, so 192, 223. Same for some class D as well. So whatever the given range we're having already 0 to 255, this again they have simplified this each and everything into different classes like class A, class B, class C, and class D, and each of these respective classes they're having its own ranges. This is nothing but a IP address classes basically, right? So any doubts till now? These concepts which we discussed on yesterday. If anybody is having any doubts, let me know so that we can discuss and then we can continue further. Any of you? Hello?
Nothing, Shiva.
Give me 1 minute. Okay, so these things we discussed on yesterday. Okay, so now within this IP address clauses, we're having a small concept that is what is meant by network ID and broadcast ID. So what is meant by network ID and broadcast ID? So as I mentioned you on yesterday, right? So if you go for any IPv4 address, so it should be within this specific range, right? So just I'm assuming some examples on this respect to IPv4. Let us assume we have some range of IP addresses like 0.0, 0.0 to maybe some 0.0, 0.1, something like this. So what are the list of IP address which falls under within this specific range basically? So like 0.0, 0.0, 0.0, 0.1, right? 0.0.2, 0.0.3, 0.0.4, something like this. So like this we're having list of IP addresses, right? And finally we're having some 0.0.02, 0.10. So like this we're going to get some list of IP address if you're having some this type of range within this specific range. Just I assume, right? So now here, what are the IP address within this specific range? So if you observe within this specific range, this is the starting of this IP address, right? 0.0.0.0.0. So now this IP address, what we are calling as a network ID. Okay, and within this range, whatever the ending address. So here 0.0.0.10. So this ending of this respect to IP address. So what we are calling as a broadcast ID. So within this range, whatever the IP address which we are having as a starting, so this IP address, this is nothing but what we are calling as a network ID, and ending of this IP address of this respective specific range, what we are calling as a broadcast ID here. This is a very small concept within this IP address clauses. So network ID and broadcast ID basically. Okay. So what is the reason to go for IP addresses? Okay, what is the reason to go for IP addresses basically? So basically, if you observe any of these companies, right? So definitely they will follow some hierarchy. I mean, development point of view. If you want to develop some application, so definitely they need to follow some hierarchy. Means, so it can be some project architect, followed by some project managers, followed by some project leads, followed by some team leads, and then followed by some senior developers, and then some developers. So this may be the hierarchy in which they're going to follow, basically, right? So let us, I have taken some, I'm going with some hierarchy here. So maybe we're having some project architect. So project architect may have some different teams again. So maybe he is having some development team. Maybe he is having some testing team. Maybe he is having some database team as well. So I guess that he's going to have so many tips, project architect, or maybe some delivery manager, something. Okay. So now, if you want to develop some end product or maybe some end application, so out of these teams, each and every team contribution is required, basically, right? Each and every team contribution is required to develop some application, or it can be some product as well. And each and every team is required, definitely they require some virtual machines. So virtual machine is nothing but a some IP address. So each and every machine is having some unique IP address, unique public IP address, basically, right? So in order to get this IP address, or in order to get this, whether it is a developers or maybe some team managers, each and everyone is required some virtual machine. So basically, how they are going to get this respect to virtual machines here, right? So this project architect or any person who is having some higher management, they're going to drop an email to some Azure admin team or maybe some operations team or whoever creating this respect to Azure virtual machines, right? So just they're going to drop an email. So let us assume this development team may require 20 IP addresses or 20 virtual machines. Testing team may require some 10 IP addresses or 10 virtual machines. So like database team may require some 5 IP addresses or VMs, right? And as we discussed earlier, this application need to pass some different environments like development environment, testing environment, pre-production, production, integration environments, right? And each of these respective environments is also required some VMs as well, right? So whether development machine is required some different types of virtual machines or different types of environments is required, and development environment itself is required some virtual machine in even for testing environment or maybe some integration, and each and every of these respective different environments is also required some virtual machines. That virtual machines need to access by different teams as well, right? So maybe totally, let us assume maybe they require total amount maybe some 40 to 45 virtual machines is required. Just I have taken some small example. So now here, this Azure admins, so they will create these many number of virtual machines or these many number of IP addresses, whoever it is required by respect to team members here. Okay, so this is the reason why each and every company requires some IP addresses or maybe some virtual machine. These are all these things basically. Okay, so here I have taken some project actor. Maybe it is going to be vary for respect to companies or respect to organization. So it may not be this respect to hierarchy. Just I have taken some example. That's it. Okay. Basically, this project architect or higher level management, they're going to drop an email to the Azure admins team or operations team. So where they're going to create some virtual machines or unique IP address, and each and every virtual machine is going to followed by some username password, which you need to log in. And within that respective virtual machine, whatever the software, so which you need to work on. So let us assume I want to develop some application. Maybe I require some IDE, right? I require some database. I require some URLs to get some data from different sources. All these things inbuilt, it is going to be available within that respect to virtual machine. What are the virtual machine is provided by maybe some project architect or maybe some different management. So maybe some companies they're going to provide some. Nowadays we are working from home, right? So maybe these all details is going to provide some HR, but internally this much of process is there basically. Okay, so this is the reason why we are going for some IP addresses or virtual machines. So in order to develop some application, so end goal is we need to develop some application. So if you want to develop something, definitely we require some virtual machines. So that's it. So virtual machine is nothing but a IP address, some public IP address. Okay. So if we observe the companies, basically we have different teams to develop end product. Out of these teams, we have some project architect, in which he is associated with different teams like development team, testing team, database team, something like this. Okay, so these different teams required some amount of virtual machine. Nothing but what we are calling as an IP addresses, public IP addresses, basically. Okay. So Azure admins, or it can be some operations team as well. They need to assign systems. We are calling as a systems, right? But each and every system is followed by some IP addresses. So the system they're calling as in virtual machines. First of all, they will create some virtual machines. Okay, based on the information given by project architect. Okay. Maybe he can say you some we require some 45 machines or 45 virtual machines or 45 IP address, something like that, and followed by some different environments. So whatever the environments which you are having, so different environments also require some virtual machines. So these all these things finally he is going to drop an email to the Azure admins. Azure admins is responsible to create these many number of virtual machines here. Okay. So this is the reason why we are going for IP address basically. So These two things we discuss now. We need to discuss. So as you know already, how to create this resource group and even this ritual network and followed by some subnet. So now here we will create some Windows virtual machine. Basically, I think we have created some Linux. So now we are going to create some Windows virtual machine, and then how to access this Windows virtual machine also we're going to discuss. Okay, so let us go to portal.azure.com. Let's provide your login credentials. So first try to create some resource group. Just click on create. So you can give some name, Azure test, next tags. So if you want, you can provide some tags, right? So just click on create. So resource group is created. So then what we need to do? We need to create some ritual network. Click on create. So maybe some Azure test underscore hyphen underscore win. Next IP address. So here I'm giving some 10.11.0 compulsory /16. Some subnet name I'm giving Azure test underscore subnet. So it should be /24. Okay, so 10.11.1.0/24. So next security, next tags. So just next review on create. So just it is going to review all of these respect to options, whatever things which are given in this respect to options here. Click on next review and create. Finally click on create. So it is created, right? So now we need to create some virtual machine. Click on create. Resource group. What are the resource group which are created? So it is going to be available in this respect to resource group drop down. Some virtual machine. So now I want to create some Windows machine, maybe someone. Okay. So here you need to change this respect to image. Here we need to go with some Windows related images, right? So these many images will have basically. Okay. So you can go with maybe some Windows Server 2019 data center Gen 2 or Gen 1, anything you can create. Okay. And you can select the size as well. So how much amount of RAM or number of CPUs, right? How many number of data disks. So these things, whatever things you want, you can choose it here based upon this respect to price, whatever the price we are getting. So here whenever if you are purchasing some amount of CPUs, so definitely price is going to increase, or amount of RAM, any of these things. So list is some 736, right? But here, whenever if you are choosing some two CPUs or RAM or number of tasks, number of data disks, so definitely the price is going to increase. So just I'm going with this VM size is B2S. So just click on select, and the price is 2600 something. Okay. Then you can provide the username, password, and confirm password. So just I'm giving username as Shiva1, password, provide some password as well. Okay. Click on none. Next, disks. Go with standard SSD. Next, networking. Next, management. Click on disable. Next, advanced. Next, tags. So if you want, you can provide the tags. So whether this virtual machine is belongs to which environment or which team. So you can provide, if you want, you can provide this respect to tags here. Next, review and create. Just it is going to validate all these options, whatever the options which are providing, either basics, disks, networking, management, all of these options. So if something is, if you are not provided, so it is going to say some validation is not passed. If you are providing all of these things as expected by this Azure cloud, so we're going to get some message as a validation passed finally. Finally click on create. It will take some time to create. So it is created. So now if you observe this virtual machine, so we have created some Windows operating system. I mean, we can simply say that Windows virtual machine, right? So now if you observe here, within this, basically we're having some public IP address, and one more thing is private IP address. Okay, we're having two IP addresses. One is public IP address, and one more thing is private IP address, basically. Okay, so what this public IP and what this private? Once if we created respect to virtual machine, we will get two IP addresses. One is public IP address and one more thing is private IP address. Okay. So if you're going with some public IP, to connect internet to virtual machine. If you are going with some private IP, instead of connect, we can say that internal communication between virtual machine to virtual machine. So what this internal communication between VM to VM? So we will discuss later in our upcoming classes. Okay. So currently we'll discuss about this public IP. So here what I have mentioned, to connect internet to virtual machine means simply we can say that, so just we have created some virtual machine. Now I want to utilize this respect to virtual machine. How can we utilize that? Okay. So now if you want to utilize any of these respect to Windows virtual machines, not Linux, only Windows virtual machines, basically we require a software called as RDP, a remote desktop protocol. So if you want to access or if you want to utilize this Windows virtual machine, so what is the software we required here? RDP. So mostly if you go for any of these respect to Windows operating systems, whether it is a Windows 7 or Windows 10 or maybe some Windows 8, something like that, right? So by default, we are already having some RDP software. See here, remote desktop connection or desktop protocol. So it can be anything. RDP is nothing but remote desktop protocol. So this software is required if you want to access whatever the Windows virtual machine which you have created inside of Azure Cloud Account. This software is required. Okay. So once if you navigate to this respective software, or even though if you don't have this respective software, so mostly you're going to have, so if you don't have, still go to Google and type RDP download something, Windows 7 or Windows 7, Windows 10, something like this. So directly you can go to microsoft.com, click on download. So it is very easy to install. Just you need to click on next, next, next. But mostly 90%, 99%. So definitely you're going to have some RDP software. Okay. So now if you observe within this RDP software, right, what it is expecting some computer. So here computer is nothing but a public IP. So you need to paste this respect to public IP here. The username none specified. Okay, so we're going to get some username as well. So here computer, we need to provide the whatever the public IP address in which you have got it after creating some virtual machine. This public IP address we need to paste it in this respect to RDP software. Okay. So once you pasted it, okay, just you need to click on connect. See here, are we able to connect it? We are not able to connect to this respect to virtual machine, or using RDP we are not able to connect. Simply we can say that. So it is showing some message as well. Okay, remote access to server is not enabled, or remote computer is not now something. So it is not maybe some internet issue, something like that. It is saying some message indirectly. So simply we can say that we are not able to access this Windows virtual machine, whatever the Windows virtual machine which we have created by using RDP software. Okay, so what is the problem here? Why we are not able to access? So reason is we need to tell to this respect to Windows virtual machine. So this is one virtual machine which we have created, right? So we need to tell to this respect to virtual machine, please allow this software. I mean, please allow this RDP software. So we need to tell to this respect to virtual machine. So where we can update or where we can tell to this respect to Windows virtual machine, please allow this software or allow this RDP software. Okay, we are having some settings. Within these settings we are having called as a networking. So using this networking option, right? So we can tell to this respect to Windows virtual machine or Windows machine 1, so please allow this respect to specific software like RDP. Okay, and each and every software, if you go with some RDP, right? So within this RDP it is having some I mean each and every RDP, or it can be some different software, is by default they're having some inbuilt port will be there. So if you go for some RDP port, if you type some RDP port, go to Google and type some RDP port. So what is the default port here? It is having some 3389. Okay, it is a default port. It is a common port which is accessed globally. We can say that. Okay, so we need to allow this specific port. This specific port is only for RDP software. Okay, so we need to allow this specific port within this respect to Windows virtual machine, where we can allow here inside of networking. So inside of networking, what we are having, add inbound port rule. So here you need to provide this respect to port. So what is the port here? 3389. So just paste this 3389 here, and here port for, so you can mention some name, port RDP, yellow RDP port. So just within this respect to Windows virtual machine, we are allowing this respect to RDP port. I mean 3389 as an RDP port. So just click on add. So here it is created one rule. So or we can say that it is created some network security rule. Okay, so what is the network security rule? Priority some 100, name is some port underscore RTP, and it is the port. What is the RTP port? 3389. Protocol any source any destination any. Finally, if you observe this action, it is allowed. Means we are allowing this RTP software for this respect to Windows virtual machine. Or simply we can say that, so we are allowing this specific software within this respect to Windows virtual machine by configuring a port called as a 3389. By using this respective port, we are able to access now. Okay, so now try it now. So we are already allowed, right? So just click on connect now. See here, now it is asking some credentials. Enter your credentials. So username and password. So if you remember, while creating this Windows virtual machine or Windows machine 1, we have provided some username and password and confirm password as well, right? So provide this respect to username and confirm password. So my username is Shiva1. I given some password as well. Click on OK. So click on S. it will take some time to load all these things, default things. These are the things. Just I'm offing these security constraints, security configurations. So now this is your Windows virtual machine, which is an imaginary machine, same as your laptop or desktop machines what you are having. So how it is going to look like, right? Once if you're providing your username password in your PCs or maybe some your laptops, right? So basically you're going to get this is the same thing, right? How we are going to get in this Windows machine one. So here you're having the same thing, you're having some settings or power off buttons, something like this, or you can go to here PC. So this is Windows 10, right? Basically, so like this. So is these things is fine? Any doubts? Any of you? You can ask me now. Any doubts? Any of you?
Hello. Hello, Siva.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, we are
Yes,
getting
yes.
a lag in between we are getting a lag in between your video and voice. Are the same getting with others also?
Maybe the remaining persons need to respond. Is there any difference between my lag of video and my voice? Any of you?
No, it's okay with me.
Okay, then okay.
Ramesh,
Thank you.
then it is your end, maybe.
Okay, I will check.
Okay. So any doubts related to this respect to concept? I mean, how we are accessing or how we are utilizing this respect to virtual machine. Hmm? So, any doubts? Any of you? How we are able to access this? So just we have created some missions, right? Till now you know, but now we are able to access or we are able to utilize the respect to virtual machine. What are the virtual machine which you have created inside of Azure Cloud Account?
Shiva, this Satish.
Yes, yes.
Uh, for each and every server, do we need to create RDP port, that inbound port rule? If, for
For
example,
each
we
and every,
have server, like Windows machine.
okay.
See, for example, we are getting 10 to 15 servers need to be built. For each and every 10 to 15 servers, do we need to create inbound port rule?
So that thing we can overcome that limitation by using network security group, which we're going to discuss in our upcoming concept. So what you mean to
Okay.
say is, let us assume you have created some 15 virtual machines, right?
Yes. Yes.
So for each and every mission, we need to provide some this RDP port. That is your doubt, right?
Yes, correct.
So that one we can overcome by using network security group. So where this within this network security group, let us assume you have created some 15 virtual machines. Okay, for these
Okay.
15 virtual machines, so you want to allow some common ports. Let us assume I want to allow some maybe some RDP port, maybe some MySQL port, maybe some different software port, maybe some 5 ports I want to allow. Okay, these all ports you can configure in the network security group, right? So you can integrate this network security group in this respective virtual machines. So whatever the port you have created or you have allowed in this network security group, right? This respective port
Yes.
will be automatically will be available to this 15 virtual machines. Let us assume I have allowed some 1, 2, 3, 4 as some port. Let us assume. Okay. So now this
Okay.
port will be automatically will be available this respective virtual machines as well by default
Okay. Okay.
by using network security group. That concept we'll discuss in our upcoming classes.
Okay.
practically.
Thank you,
Okay.
Shiva. Okay. Thank
Yes, is your doubt clarified or any doubts?
you. Nothing, Shiva. Thanks for my.
So that thing we can achieve by using network security group basically.
Okay. Thanks.